I only died once.
I replaced... Oh, go ahead.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Okay, I'm recording.
Get it all out.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Random Encounter, the RPGFan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today, we have the man with many titles.
This is John McCarroll, Executive Editor. I'm Keeper X on our forums.
He is apparently also a Witcher expert, so we will be talking about that in the near future, about how much better he is at The Witcher 2 than I am. That's a little preview of the next podcast. We also have the man who is going to adore Witcher 2 and all games hard, and now he wants to play it on Insane.
I'm Stephen Meyerink. I'm Talos on the boards.
Yes. We have the returning fan favorite, the person who gets all the love on the boards, and I'm not jealous about it at all.
Robert Steinman.
Oh, ha, ha, ha.
Anyways, Kimberley, Wallace, Managing Editor, and K-Star on the boards.
And back from the original E3 podcast, we have...
I'm Liz Maas. I'm the Chief News and Social Media Editor, and I'm QSA on the boards.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about female characters in video games. This is something that we've all argued about time and time again. We had a feature on it talking about positive male role models. Positive male role models?
Male, female.
Jeez,
Gosh, Rob, why you got to make it all about your gender?
I'm sorry. We're talking about positive female characters.
He got confused about Kaine.
I think everybody has a right to be confused.
You're going to spoil it.
So we want to keep things positive. So we're going to talk primarily, at least at the start, about the positive characters, the positive female characters that we're seeing in video games right now. So, Kim, I'm going to direct the floor to you.
Okay, well, yeah, the big draw for the feature was that the last few games that I've been playing, I've seen a lack of really strong female characters. And what I mean by that is not that they're rough and tough, but that they are well-rounded, diverse, they have depth to them, there's more to them than meets the eye. And a perfect example for me with that is Raquel Applegate from Wild Arms 4. And the reason why that is when you first meet her, you get this like tough girl persona because she stands up for this waitress who's being picked on. But there's really more to her too, that she could have been the typical like JRPG archetype where they have that one strong female character, but she never goes anywhere. There's never more to her. And throughout the game, when you first meet her, you find out that she's looking for something still beautiful in the world. And there's a huge reason for it, which I'm not going to spoil, but it actually ends up making her a really endearing character. Like, you gain to respect her a lot more than any of the other characters in the game just because she's so strong. And she's up against, like, Yuli, this other character who does portray that weaker female qualities, who doesn't have much substance to her. So I think of one of my favorite female characters in general is her, just because there are so many layers to her, and as the game goes on, you keep finding out more and more that goes with her, and she's really well-rounded. So she definitely earns like one of the top spots for me.
I agree.
No.
I think it's also kind of interesting too, just because we were saying before the show, if you look at the rest of the cast in that game, I mean, other than Arnaud, whatever, the main cast is pretty bad.
Yeah.
The
two main characters, Yuli and Jude.
Yeah.
Awful. Just typical characters, so generic.
Yeah, and it's almost like, and the bad guys, they were trying to go with like a Metal Gear Solid style, like a crew of bad guys with superpowers, and they're all ridiculous and kind of lame. And it's just funny because throughout the entire game, you're so much more interested in what Raquel and Arnaud are doing and like their relationship. And it's just funny because they're relegated to sort of the background.
Oh, no,
and it's like,
exactly.
And it's like, hey, there are these two really interesting people, but we don't care about them.
Well, you know what else is interesting is Raquel ends up being one of your strongest party members as well. And like I said, the game could have went really generic on her, just like this tough girl, there's nothing. But where it goes with the story is really interesting. And she finds, I'm not going to spoil anything, but she finds what she's looking for in one of the places that you least expect her to, with beauty in the world. And it's just, the whole journey through with her is amazing. So I really think she's got an interesting story that most games don't explore. And I felt like you could relate to what, even if you hadn't been experiencing what she's been going through the whole journey, just something was very endearing about her. And I don't think we find so many times, you know, people want to put a tough girl on the screen to be like, oh, she's rough and tough, she can stand up to the boys. But there's got to be more to it than that for me. And Wild Arms 4 with Raquel got it right, but they didn't get it right with the cast as a whole. So
I think you said something really interesting where you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that she was also a strong party member. Mm-hmm. And that just struck me as very interesting. Just asking everybody in the group, when we're talking about traditional role-playing games, do you oftentimes keep a female in the party? Because I find that usually what ends up happening, and I know this is the stereotypical role, is that the female character tends to be the healer. And
healer or a mage.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I always end up having a female character in my role. But one of the games that everybody take a second to realize that I'm right now going to speak fondly of Final Fantasy 13.
Wow.
I know. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not having an aneurysm. I like the fact that Lightning is a strong warrior-based character, and she's not just buffing and healing the party. And I found that to be
That's what I liked.
I kind of thought that was a little cool. Now, granted, I don't like her as a character, but her role in combat is very opposite to what we normally expect out of female characters in the party dynamic.
What's actually interesting about that, too, is that Raquel, based on how I played Wild Arms 4, and if I recall, I think it was pretty much this way for everyone, you eventually get an ability called Finest Arts, and it's the most powerful attack in the game, and you can give it to anybody. And you'd be foolish to give it to anybody but Raquel, because by the end of the game, basically to win every fight, you have your other three characters weaken the bad guys, and then you have Raquel hit them and do sometimes upwards of 10 times as much damage as the other characters. I mean, she literally becomes... Everyone is support, so Raquel can kill things with her giant sword.
Yeah. And here's something interesting that you bring up, Lightning. We actually, as a staff, had a discussion about her because I don't want to leave her out. Like, she almost made our list, but I think what failed for her was that people didn't see enough character development with her to, like, Raquel has this huge story that just goes through, like, it overshadows almost what is really going on in the game. And you reach the ending and you're just like, wow. But with Lightning, I think she was too much of that, like, I'm tough, there's not much to me other than this. I mean, I'm just saying that based on what I've heard. I've not played the game to completion. I've done about 15 hours of the game. And I remember when I played, at first I was like, yeah, this is awesome, having a girl who's really tough like this in a game. And then, like, it starts to get a little old. Like, there's got to be more to it. And you kind of understand, like, her underlying reasons for being the way she is. But I just felt like, I don't know, Steven, did you play the entirety of Final Fantasy 13?
Well, based on what I've played and the vibe I'm getting, I'm in the final chapter. And I like Lightning's character just because she gets treated the same as Cloud and Squall did, i.e. she's kind of a jerk and then she becomes nicer. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's anything exceptional about it. I get the vibe that she sort of does exactly what you expect her to do. I mean, she goes through that really, really, really common Final Fantasy arc of, I'm a loner. Okay, never mind, I'm not. Mm-hmm. I haven't beaten it, so I can't say for certain in the ending, but I don't think she has any surprises in store. And I guess in one way that's kind of good because it's a little unreasonable. For example, think of Squall. Squall spent his entire life as a complete loner and wants nothing to do with anybody. And then all of a sudden he's like this extroverted, happy guy who goes to parties and has fun eating hot dogs with Zell in the ending. Whereas I don't think that happens with Lightning.
Did you know that Babe Ruth died of hot dog poisoning?
We know, John.
John's clearly
Portal
fresh
2.
Off the Portal 2 wagon. Anyways.
One thing that
we're all yelling at each other. John, go.
So one thing that I find interesting is Rob mentioned party dynamic. And I've been playing Tactics Ogre for PSP here on and off for, pretty much since it's been out, because I can't shotgun strategy RPGs after a while. I can only play one mission at a time. But I look at my party, and my healers and mages are all men. And I've got there are 2 women that I normally bring with me. One's a Death Knight, the other's a rogue.
Cool.
So
Death Knight.
Well, Death Knight, Dark Knight. I forget what the class is named, but
No, the Dark Knight is Batman.
Mean Knight.
And Death Knight is World of Warcraft. I forget what the class is called in Tactics Ogre, but I didn't do that. It wasn't like I said, oh, I'm going to make this character this and this character this. It was kind of like, well, this is what works for me.
Interesting.
Oh, that actually reminds me. I hope this isn't going to derail us, but actually, do you recall in Final Fantasy Tactics, Agrias?
Yeah. I was just going to point her out.
People actually voted for her during our feature.
She was an excellent character until she dropped off the face of the earth like all the other characters. But I mean, that's more a flaw of the game than, which it has very few. More a flaw of the game than.
Do you know what happens? You get to chapter 4, you pick up TG Sid, and the game it's like there are no other characters.
Yeah, you use TG Sid and Ramza, and you win every fight.
Well, this actually brings up a good question that happened with Wild Arms 4. Are these games just focusing on the wrong characters? Like, their leads are not as powerful as maybe these side characters that they should give more light to, but they just don't fully develop like we'd like to see.
You mean in terms of story or in terms of how strong they are?
No, story. Like, strength to me is like, it can go either way. I know part of it's realistic, part of it's not. I could try to push one of you, and I'm sure it wouldn't be as strong as if, a man pushed someone else.
I don't know. I'm pretty weak.
One thing I think is interesting is we had a conversation previously about this where we were talking about Mass Effect, and I was playing through the DLC for Kasumi. Mm-hmm. And I really like the Kasumi character. I think that she's a great character. But what I question is Kasumi pretty much has all of her story wrapped up nice and tight in this one little package. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of enigmatic. The question is, does she become a better character if they spend more time on her? I'm not so sure.
Do you think people would love her the same way? Because we were talking about Mass Effect last time and how a lot of the female characters didn't really resonate with us that well. Like, we thought the male characters kind of were better developed in that game and were more interesting, say, than the female ones. And
I think because we mentioned we roundly abused Jack, but I compared her to Elizabeth Salander from the Millennium Trilogy, the girl with the dragon tattoo. And I think Jack could have been a really interesting
Moore
character.
from G.I. Jane.
She has suspender bras.
Yes, which is a great fashion statement.
Well, yeah, and for the thing with Jack, too, is that if you don't get nitty-gritty into her romance, which you wouldn't unless you were male Shep, of course, but you don't see much development from her. So I think
even when she talks about her past, she still doesn't change in the end. After you're done the conversation, she's like, that's it, go away. So she's still like the tough girl that you were talking before the conversation. She doesn't really change, even after she tells you her story.
Liz, can you tell me... Wait, 1 second. Liz, can you tell me what it's all about again?
Jack?
Just tell me what it's all about.
What it's all about?
Canadian. No. He's trying to do that on purpose.
He did that
you're so podcast mean.
Too. He did that at the E3 podcast.
I'm sorry. It's just when she said boot, I was just like, that's right, she's Canadian.
No.
I always thought that we said it like a boat. I never thought we said a boot. I always thought we said a boat.
Well, maybe to us Americans, it sounds like what it's really not.
As long as you don't have one of those big flappy heads from South Park.
Womp.
Sorry. Moving on.
But anyways, do you think if they would have focused more on Kasumi, it would have ruined her, or we wouldn't have felt as strong?
Well, the thing that I run into is that, because she was a piece of this download content, she was created in essence to be download content. Like, the game can exist without Kasumi, period. You don't have to pick up Kasumi. She is a completely separate thread. I don't think she was set up to be a character that you learned about over the course of 15, 20, however many hours you played Mass Effect 2. Yeah, I think that had they set her up that way, she would be a great character. But
exactly,
it's kind of playing a what if. Well, she might be a good character.
She would have been better than Zaid, okay? That's all I'm saying.
Well, Zaid was download content too. He was for buying the game new. He was just kind of like, I'm a mercenary.
What was so awful?
You know what? I just realized something. The DLC character from the original Dragon Age, Shale, wasn't Shale a woman?
I don't know.
I think Shale might have been a woman.
I don't think Golem creatures count as having gender.
Well, if so, I mean, that was the best character in the original Dragon Age. So
maybe the more we found out about some of these characters, because they don't live up to our expectations, like we discussed with Miranda, you go through her character mission and then you come out of it, but you don't feel like the character is changed by the time you get to the end of the game. So maybe that's more what it's about.
So I actually that's an interesting thing, because the character I want to talk about is Isla from Chrono Trigger. Mm-hmm. Isla doesn't really change.
Mm-hmm. But she's still a good character.
Yeah. Isla doesn't get explored nearly as much as the rest of the characters in Chrono Trigger. She gets her one little arc when you're in 65 million BC, and she's the leader, and she's kicking ass, but she's compassionate, and she's helpful, and I don't know. She's just a good character.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can you pit her against Luca, and where, kind of for people who have played the game, what you see is more of her strength over Luca? Because I think it's interesting you're picking, her.
So, I mean, Luca is intelligent, and she builds things,
but she's not a leader type.
Yeah, she's just kind of there for me. Like, I liked Luca. I think she's. I think
she's more like all brains, nothing else, or she.
Well, she was a really good support.
I think she has excellent depth, especially given if you do her side quests, what with her mother and with all of that. I think that gives her a lot of depth. I just think that she's not meant to be a focus, whereas it's obvious from the whole game that you're supposed to be paying more attention to Marl.
Yeah,
to me anyway.
What I think is interesting is you're not supposed to pay attention to Isla. Isla is like Robo, Queen. Where they're side characters. Like, as much as I like Robo's my favorite character. He's not the focus in that game. But I think that every single time that they have a real dialogue sequence with Isla, as opposed to I'm a cave woman, da-da-da, that it turns out well. Like, you look at her, how she interacts with Kino, and she's got a really, really good dynamic with Kino. And, she's there to protect her village, and that she just, I think that for me, it's that she displays real leadership qualities.
Without drawing attention to.
Yeah, she's proving herself. It doesn't matter. She's man, woman, otherwise. She is there and she's taking control. And I don't see that with Luca or Marl. And it's, I really like Isla more than I like the other two.
I think it's funny that when you first brought up that you were going to talk about Isla, and I was sitting there going, why wouldn't you pick Luca or Marl? And I think you've really made the point, and you've argued it very well. And I guess I like Luca, and I don't really have an opinion on Marl, but I think you're right. Isla is a very strong female character. Now, I think I found her to be a little obnoxious at times, but I think that's the nature of being a cave woman who just eats things and just beats the crap out of things. But she is the leader of her people, and I think that there is something to be said for that. And so, yeah, I didn't think you were going to make that. I didn't think you were going to articulate that very well, John. But I would agree. I think she is a more interesting character. And now I have to replay Chrono Trigger because now I want her in my party. Thanks.
Oh, no problem.
Well, I almost always had her in my party. She was
the first time I played it, I used her, but then I never used her again.
Well, she can't use magic, right?
All of her attacks are physical.
She can hit people with a dragon tail, though.
Physical. What?
Someone's going to make a wave of that, Rob.
See, what's interesting is, the total aside, nothing to do with female, male characters, whatever, I used Robo and Isla, and so I had a character that technically couldn't use magic, and a character that couldn't use magic.
But then again, you had Chrono, and all you had to do was Lumiere, and you could just beat the game.
It's not Lumiere, Rob, it's Luminaire. Lumiere is the name of the character from the Beauty and the Beast.
I'm sorry. I was helping with the kids' performance here of Beauty and the Beast. Damn.
Oh.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Anybody else notice that Luminaire looked exactly like Ultima?
Yes, I noticed that.
Look,
Like
there was
first
also what was Magus's move? Dark Matter. It was like the opposite of Luminaire.
Yeah, it was like the same thing, but black.
I think
because Magus is so dark.
I think it's interesting that we talked about who was the main character of Chrono Trigger. I've always thought that the main character was either Frog or Magus. Because Chrono is not the main character.
Chrono is the guy
it
that you
does revolve a lot
play
around
as.
Laurel too, I find.
Yeah, the beginning part of the game
Especially, like, the
especially.
Well, Chrono is a vehicle. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be you.
He's Goku.
No, I don't like Goku. Goku is not me.
I don't like Goku either.
How do you not? Well, fine.
Because
All right.
Goku's a big giant doofus, and like he
He
acts
can also,
like.
but now wait, he can punch a mountain in half.
Who cares? He's a
Goku
idiot.
is a giant man who used to work for Staples.
Oh my god.
All right.
All right.
John, do you have anything else to say about Isla?
No, I like Chrono Trigger. It's a very good game. All the characters are well written in Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's
Laurel is
interesting
my
because
favorite.
it's an older game compared with the ones we're talking about. Like now there's way more character development and everything in games, but back then the time it came out, it really did.
Well, and
I think what really does it for Chrono Trigger is the fact that it's not pretentious at all. Like if you play any Final
It's very
Fantasy, I would
simplistic.
say after 5, they get actually not even 6. 6 doesn't come across as terribly pretentious, but the
No.
Final Fantasies go for serious melodrama, and Chrono Trigger had none of that nonsense. It was a game with a
It's
story
fun.
that it wanted to tell.
It's like let's go. Basically, Chrono Trigger is let's go on a magical adventure through time. Holy crap, the future sucks. Let's fix that. Yeah, guys, let's do it. You know?
Exactly. It's not very,
True, true.
they don't overcomplicate things and try to look very deep. It's what it is.
But
You are
but
well
They still have awesome stuff. Like
It's
you
all
know,
the little things about Chrono Trigger. Like it was always so sad when I would go to the future and be like, "You've been fully restored, but you're still
You're
hungry."
still hungry.
one of the details in that game that always was awesome for me is when you do the side quest for Robo, where you take him to the cathedral and he has to build the forest.
Oh,
And
yeah.
For the rest of the game, when you go outside that cathedral, in
He's
650, he's there like plowing the fields.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just
Find
thought
him
that
again
was-
in the future.
Like that is so little, but it's awesome because you're playing the whole game and like it's like you get a feeling for what he did. He was there for 400 years tilling that forest.
The last thing I want to say about Chrono Trigger is and its connection to Chrono Cross, because I love Chrono Cross. When you visit the Dead Sea in Chrono Cross, that was one of the most eerie,
Haunting.
chilling scenes I've ever had in a video game, because you got to see what the future. It was basically taking that future that you saw in the Super Nintendo Chrono
was like,
Trigger.
Oops.
And you saw the ramifications of it now on the PlayStation, and that was just chilling.
Well, what also was
It's
chilling
so
about it
sad.
too was the fact that it was like this is what they did in the first game. They destroyed all of that. Whether or not that was a total crap future, they still destroyed that entire existence.
Yep. All right. Now I agree with Kim. I think we need to get away from Chrono Trigger because we could talk about Chrono Trigger all day. So does
that
anybody
could be a
mind?
whole podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Does anybody mind if I talk about my character right now?
No, go ahead. I was going to say you're up next.
Okay.
On deck.
So I had to really think long and hard about this because I really wanted to pick a female character that didn't fit any stereotypes, that I really enjoyed, and I liked the fact that it was a strong female character. And so I'm sitting there going, oh, should I pick Dagger from Final Fantasy IX? I like her development, but I think she starts off the game fairly weak. She really does develop, but I didn't want to pick her. And then I thought, well, what about Morrigan from Dragon Age? And I was like, well, I mean, she's using sex to basically get everything she wants, and she's wearing an absolutely ridiculous outfit. That's a little hard. And then I had to think all the way back to what I believe is the first RPG that I ever played, which was on the Sega Channel. I played Phantasy Star 4.
Snap.
Yeah, on the Sega
here
Channel.
we go.
Yes, I played
Here it
Phantasy
is.
Star 4, and the female character that I choose is Stephen.
Elise.
Please pronounce it.
Alice Brangwyn.
Elise, right?
Yeah. Or
Okay. I always said Alice when I was a kid, but Elise, who is she's basically the mentor of the main character of the game, Chaz, and she's a strong-willed female character who is not dressed ridiculously, is not using feminine wiles to get what she wants. In the animated cutscenes in the game, she is, tough, Han Solo-like at times, asking for more money for missions.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but she has the character sprites in that game only animate to walk, other than Chaz, who has a sword animation, and she has an animation of punching a dude in the face.
Yeah,
awesome.
And
That's awesome.
She also has a bromance with the coolest character in the game.
Yeah, and now that's the thing. I was going to bring up that point too. The coolest character I think in Phantasy Star 4, and I still need to finish that game. I get like halfway through it every time, and then I just don't want to finish it because it's too good, And you have Rune, who is a mage in the game, and so when those two characters first meet, you think, oh, they're going to fall in love.
Nope.
No, it's a respect. It is a bromance between these two characters. They respect and love each other, but they're not, like going off to the corner, or they don't get all lovey-dovey with each other.
They're not in love,
right? Yeah, it's a love
buds.
Respect, and that's phenomenal.
And the best part about that is it leads into the way the game, because I think the first part of the game, Elise is the main character because it hasn't become Chaz yet. And because of her relationship with Rune, the relationship with Chaz is that much more interesting, because when he first meets Chaz, they just bicker and fight constantly because he's just this punk kid that hangs out with his friend. And they go from this relationship of him constantly antagonizing him to them becoming basically equals, and it's just...
That's awesome.
Yeah, I need to finish that game.
Yeah, it's totally awesome.
It's a game that I've always wanted to finish, but I'm not even sure how long it is, but like I would always... You know what part I always end on?
Which one?
And spoiler warning right now, if you've never played Phantasy Star 4, please turn it off right now. Like, go 5 minutes into the future on this podcast, okay? Just spoiler
You're not going to talk about it for 5 minutes, are you?
No, just like for 2. When she dies, I can't play the game anymore.
Oh, dude, that's like a quarter or a fifth of the way into the game.
I can't. Okay, then I'm not even halfway through it. I can't play it anymore. Because I
like that character so much, right?
I was so broken and so upset that she was gone. It didn't help matters. I'm playing it on the Sega Channel, and like the Sega Channel would just randomly delete a save if it just felt like it.
Yeah, you play another game, it's like, oh, sorry
about that. I love how the Sega Channel would say, "Don't play another game."
That's actually where I first played it too, and then I ended up getting it bought for me by accident because somebody was trying to get me something else, and. It's just funny that you stopped there, because when I first played that, that was basically the first RPG I ever played. And I was playing it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of different from Sonic because I have all these menus, and what the hell's going on? And she died, and I was like, oh, my God, this is horrible. And I was like 4, so I was like crying my eyes out. I was like, this is horrible. Because, I mean, it took me weeks to get to that point because I was like, 4 or 5.
Oh, my God. You were that age when that game came out.
Yes, he was.
But the fact that he cared that much is awesome. Because like I was saying before, games at that time, they weren't as developed as they are now. And now we're finding games where we're not caring as much about the characters. And it's interesting that did that then.
What's interesting is a lot of people say that Final Fantasy VII was the game that kind of cinematized games. No, it was Phantasy Star 4.
I totally agree, John.
Because it did much of what Final Fantasy VII did far earlier, and in my opinion, better.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing.
I need to play it. I need to play it the whole way through, and I totally agree with John. It was doing things that Final Fantasy VII is, just everybody says Final Fantasy VII is the game that brought us the cinematic RPG, blah, 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 blah. But no, I really go with Phantasy Star 4. I remember reading Phantasy Star 4's like previews in magazines and just being like, oh my God, there's anime cutscenes? This is nuts. No, it can't possibly be this good. And then I played it, and I was just like, wow. Okay, Sega, if you're listening right now, just give me another Phantasy Star. Just go work on it.
That's exactly what they did. Listen, when Phantasy Star Online first came out, I was heartbroken, and my friends were like, this game's awesome. I'm like, screw it. No, it's terrible. It's not Phantasy Star. And I eventually grew to like it, but we're never going to get another turn-based Phantasy Star.
It's like when people say, I want a new Shining game.
Yeah.
We're never going to get
it'll never be the same. It'll never be the same.
They'll get crap like Shining Hearts.
It breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart because I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity. Again, it's a sign of Sega not knowing what the hell they're doing. It's just they had that. You remember how much Phantasy Star 4 cost when it came out? I remember going to a Toys R Us and going, "What? It's $100. It was $100. Golly. All right. So yeah, that was my main character, is just a strong female character who acts as a mentor, which I don't think you see a lot. Especially you very rarely see a female mentor character.
Especially one that has interesting relationships with not just one character.
Right, and she's not just trying to sleep with the main character. She has a bromance with another character. Like, this is a woman who doesn't show... I mean, she's a warrior. That's what she is.
Yeah, when you first have her, she's far and away better than every character in your party.
Until you get Rune.
Yeah, and
so
then,
she's
once you have Rune,
the Raquel angle, too, because Raquel also had that mentor thing going on, but she's also, like, a really valuable member of your party. So I like the parallels that we're hitting here.
And then you pick up Grizz, and he's like, I've got an axe.
Dude, that was the most disappointing part of that game. It's like, no, Rune's leaving, and I get this guy?
Yeah, I remember when Rune left.
Try?
I was really upset when Rune left.
Dude, don't even get me started.
I know. All right, so, Steven.
Well, anyway, I'm going to keep it on Phantasy Star 4. I don't think you'll know this character, Rob, just because it's much later in the game. But you actually get another character who has a lot of Elise's abilities, and she fights with the same kind of weapon. Her name is Kyra. And you meet her. She's actually the same race of people that Rune is from, like the mage people.
Okay.
And she has kind of... John might have to help me with this. She has kind of a personality where she sort of wants to force herself to become Chaz's older sister. Like, she wants to become the kind of relationship that Elise had with Chaz, and it's a funny foil because she has depth to her as well. But she comes across as another character that isn't just a complete stereotype. She, a lot of her dialogue is humorous. When you first meet her, she's run off to go try to save, her people. And
yeah, God, it's been forever since I've played it. I remember Kyra, and I remember going in my ice vehicle and going to look for her, but I don't remember much of her character, and I think that has to do with the fact that I played the game when I was like 14. But
yeah, we were both young, John. We were both very, very young. It's such an awesome game.
Yeah, no, you really should complete it, Rob.
I know. I'm going to do it this summer. That's always been, like, on the pile of shame. Like, I'm so angry at myself for not beating it, but again, the access that I had to it was so limited.
It's actually pretty short, too. You could probably finish it. Like, I've beaten it an embarrassing number of times, and most recently I finished it on the Sega Genesis Collection on PSP, and I think I finished it in, like, I probably had, like, 20 hours on it.
Yeah, because it'll take Rob like 40.
Yeah,
because no, I'm not saying it's the first time that you're playing it.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought that was a backhand.
No, the first time I played it, I was younger. It took me like 3 years to beat it the first time I played it. And because I would get stuck on fights, because you can't grind in that game, because if you grind too far, you eventually start getting weaker.
Really?
It's a glitch. If you hit level 99, you start de-leveling. You lose all your abilities until you're level 1 again.
Huh.
But you'll never get to level 99,
yeah,
so don't worry about it.
Unless you're like, I'm going to grind all day.
For like a month.
You start to de-level.
Well, no, you gain levels. You lose every level. Instead of gaining stats, you lose them.
Well, I learned something today.
You did.
I think I did hear about that with that game. Is the original Phantasy Star worth playing? Because we're talking about female main characters. You also have Alice from the original Phantasy Star. Is that worth playing, or am I just going to be so horribly frustrated by it?
Okay. Okay, I will go. I don't think that it's worth playing either of the first 3 Phantasy Stars at this point.
Really?
Really?
Have you tried playing Phantasy Star 2 recently?
Well, actually, it's funny because when I was a kid, I beat Phantasy Star 4, and then I spent, I kid you not, like a year trying to get a Master System so I could play Phantasy Star 1, and I never got one. So when they came out on Game Boy, I beat Phantasy Star 1, and I beat Phantasy Star 3. And then just recently, while I was in Japan, I beat 2 on the iPod for the first time.
Oh my God, you must hate yourself to play that game that much.
Well, here's what I heard, that like in the first, she kind of paved the way for the female, protagonist being like more than just what they were.
Well, yeah,
at that point.
Like she's out for revenge.
But there's not as much narrative, because it was at that point. So I think now looking at it, you can appreciate what it did for the females, having her have that strong role, but there wasn't too much character development then, so you miss a beat on a few things on why she mattered, But she's that pioneer, so you have to give her kudos for that.
Yeah, basically her entire story is encompassed in the first cutscene, because then the entire rest of the game is let's get the bad guy. Okay, we got the bad guy. Oh, wait, there's another bad guy. Get him too.
And then Phantasy Star 2, which actually Phantasy Star 2 had one of the first kind of real emotional scenes in a game for me. But then it's like, okay, you're going to go into these mage-like dungeons forever.
Yeah,
Ever.
Rob, I don't know that you'd like Phantasy Star 2 right now.
I played Phantasy Star 2, and I can play it for like 2 or 3 hours, and I was like, wow, I am dying a lot, and I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Until you steal the item that lets you save anywhere, which even then doesn't make things that much easier.
And don't you accidentally steal that item?
You have to walk in and out of the building like 20 times.
Oh, wow.
And have the thief in your party.
Yeah, the horrible, awful thief who's only good to steal things.
How archaic games could be back then. Yeah. We really need to have a podcast where we go back into like games that just have not aged well at all.
Well, honestly, we could have a podcast about Chrono Trigger and a podcast about Phantasy Star 4, and
that would be amazing.
It'd be
But yeah, no, and then Phantasy Star 3 wasn't very good when it came out, even though I really liked it, but it hasn't aged well even with that.
Yeah, like, it's definitely the weirdest one of the three, but it has its own merits.
I remember playing Phantasy Star 3, and I was like, what the... Like, I know what happens in Phantasy Star 3, but I just...
It turns out, at first, it seems not to be related, but then it's actually a spin-off.
Yeah. I think we definitely need to move... Because, again, so we've basically decided we need a Chrono Trigger podcast, and we need a Phantasy Star podcast. Okay.
See how...
Count me in for Chrono Trigger.
This podcast has been...
I'm sorry, but we're being positive though.
No, this is great. No, I love the discussions.
I just want one really quick aside, going back to Elise, and that at the very beginning of the game, she meets Han, who Han is a male character and is like the
biggest waste of space in that game.
Yes,
like he's all like, I ran away from home to go to school so I could marry my sweetheart. But my daddy doesn't love me.
And like, Han is like the
horrible.
kind of, like, coming out of Japanese games, Han is the kind of character that you would expect to be female. He's useless and weak.
I like Han.
That's interesting.
Later on in the game, when you get him back in the end, he has moves that make him decent, but he's still, by far, without a doubt, he dies in 2 hits from everybody.
I like Han. He's so, like... He's Han. He's worthless.
And then Elise is like, hey, Han, give me money.
Actually,
I'll let you come along. Yeah, that's another reason why she's awesome. So.
Yeah, she's like, well, that's all of my money.
All right, Liz?
I wanted to talk about Celeste. I can never figure out how to pronounce her name, from Final Fantasy VI. Those of you who have read the feature probably saw her like as the first person on the best of list. And I like her because, well, first, Final Fantasy VI doesn't really seem to have a main character. Like, most everybody seems to get quite a bit of the spotlight. And then when you get to Celeste, she's pretty interesting because she uses, well, in battle, she uses both, like, swords and her runic spell, which is actually really handy, and magic. She's, like, the second magic user you get after Terra. But story-wise, she was just really interesting because she starts out as a general in the Imperial Army. And then she joins your party. You think she's going to, like, just hook up with Locke or something. You think she's just going to be a love interest with Locke. But as the game goes on, she gets more interesting. And can I spoil the game? I mean, it's like 17 years old.
Yeah, I think you're free if someone hasn't played it yet and they're looking to...
You have passed the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't played Final Fantasy VI yet, you're a heathen and you need to go play it. But, I'm serious! It's an awesome game. But...
Yeah, unfortunately, Square hasn't made it available on every platform that you own.
Yeah, I don't know. Why was that?
They were supposed to. But we haven't gotten ours yet.
I think that's why it's still so cherished, too, because it wasn't, like, overdone with remakes.
Like 4.
Oh. Who did that?
Stephen, well timed.
Wow.
It was me.
Well timed.
All right, I feel better now.
Quick aside, since we're talking about Final Fantasy VI, that game and Chrono Trigger shared like 50% of their sound effects.
I noticed. Like
true.
the wind effects and even...
And that laugh?
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy in the tent in the Millennial Fair. He had that laugh. He's like, whoop, 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 and I'm like, oh no, it's Kefka.
Lucky for me, I played Chrono Trigger first, so at first I was like, where'd that guy in the tent come from? That was Kefka? No way.
I wonder if Magus could kick Kefka's ass. I would want. That's. Oh gosh, I need to know.
We're not going to have fake nerd fight video game characters. Hey, who would win in a fight?
Well, that would be fun though.
I think we just had it. I'm putting my money down on Kefka.
Magus.
I would too. Kefka's my favorite.
Especially if you've played Chrono
destroyed
Cross.
the world.
Yeah, but if you've played Chrono Cross and the DS Chrono Trigger, Magus has been through 8 timelines in several dimensions.
Okay, that's fair enough, but
and destroyed the devourer of universes.
All right. Shut up. This is a game about female characters. Dang it. All right.
Sorry.
Liz, tell us more reasons why Celes is awesome, except for her fishing abilities.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's when I was going to spoil the game, right? Okay.
Yes.
If you don't save Sid in the World of Balance, when the World of Ruin part of the game starts, Celes, she basically tries to kill herself, jump off a big tall cliff or whatever.
She can't even do that right.
And
I'm sorry. I'm such a morbid
Rob,
person.
you are so evil.
No, this is like when The Sopranos, when little Tony tried to kill himself at the end of the last season. I was like, dude, you can't even kill yourself, right?
I thought he did.
No, he tried, but he failed.
No, Rob's just evil.
It's true.
So sad.
But maybe it's because she didn't really want to die. But hey.
Sigh.
Oh,
Anyway, she fails to kill herself, and what she ends up doing is she ends up going all the way around the world in that, what was that airship called? Kind of re-recruiting all your allies, and she basically ends up being the one to rally everybody and save the world.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and I thought she was really awesome because she showed her weak sides, when she tried to kill herself, and then but she also showed her strengths when she got it together and just went out and found everybody.
How do we feel about Terra, too? Because Terra in the second half of the game is pretty interesting.
Yeah, she's kind of...
We have mixed discussion about her for our... when we were going through trying to do the voting. Weren't there people who were a fan, people who weren't?
She's kind of disillusioned with life at that point.
Yeah, she was pretty interesting, too. I liked her story, but she just didn't stand out to me like Celes did, where she had, all that variety and just kind of...
Celes went from being another one of the cast to being basically the hero.
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool.
I mean, Terra was a hero in her way, too, but to me, she just didn't stand out as much, especially in the second half of the game.
Yeah, she definitely took a back seat, especially after she became the Esper and flew
She's
away
like, woo, I turned pink.
I used Morph.
Wow.
Morph was awesome, dang it.
Yeah, Morph was totally rad.
Anyway.
But Edgar was more awesome.
Yeah.
So,
I pretty much love most of that cast.
Yeah, that's the nice thing. I think that one of the reasons why you can't say, well, this character is better than this character when it comes to Final Fantasy VI is that all of the characters are very good. Mm-hmm. You even look at, oh god, I forgot, what's the little girl's name?
Realm.
Realm was a great character.
Doesn't she, and if you do, see, I didn't find her that interesting, but I never used her. Except when you had to. Maybe it was, I guess because I didn't use her that much, but doesn't she turn out to have a backstory with Shadow?
She does. And I was actually reading an article on this the other day. Do you know?
Ain't he Baby Daddy or whatever?
He Baby Daddy.
Yeah.
Baby Daddy.
We just gave away Final Fantasy VI, Phantasy Star 4.
They're old enough games.
What other games can we ruin today?
Yeah, at this point, I think it's fair game, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Snape kills Eris.
It's not like it's just...
Did you say Snake kills Eris?
Snape.
Oh, Snape kills Eris? I don't think he does, actually.
By the way, 2 months from now, I'm going to be seeing Harry Potter in 3 hours.
Wow.
You are such a freaking nerd.
But,
Quiet, Rob.
I'm sorry. He's
to...
recording an RPG fan podcast.
Sephiroth kills Dumbledore.
No! Actually, I'd be okay with that. But now, Celes is also...
could never stop Dumbledore.
Celes is also an interesting character because, she's a general, she's, kind of a warrior, but she didn't agree with what was going on at the time. So she's playing a conflicted hero role as well.
Yeah.
was also
Didn't we find out, like, when she was in the Imperial Army near the end, didn't we find out that she was wearing a slave crown for part of that time?
Yes.
Or is that just Terra?
No, she's wearing a slave crown at that time. So
that's what I thought, yeah.
There's portions of the game where her mind is being controlled, but I think you're also talking about a character that she was working for the bad guys, and then she kind of, comes around and she starts joining the heroes. And then when you get to the World of Ruin, she is the main character at the beginning of World Ruin, which was interesting because I didn't like Celis during the main game. And then when you get to that point, I was like, well, I'm kind of stuck with her now, so I guess I need to start liking her. And I did start to like her.
Yeah, like, I didn't dislike her before, but I didn't think she would become much. I thought, maybe she'll just be a love interest to Locke, but she really developed from the beginning of the World of Ruin and on to the end.
She also has one of the single most useful skills in the game.
Runic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that saved my butt many times.
You know what's funny? When I first played that game, I kid you not, until I got to, like, probably the last dungeon, I had no idea what Runic did. Like, I could never figure it out.
I didn't the first few times, and then I used it, and I was like, oh, that's what it does.
I think I was actually fighting Kefka, and I used it. I was like, oh, my God.
Wow.
His move didn't kill me. And then Mog came down and delivered swift justice. But
Steven, you just suck at video games.
No, I just made it.
See how much that hurts?
I made it through the entire game without using Runic and using Celis. I just don't need those abilities. I don't need the crutch.
I mostly used her for her magic ability, actually. But she is a good sword fighter, too.
Yeah, she is actually really strong with magic. I forgot about that. So.
I think my strategy was to get every character Ultima except for Mog, who I gave the quadruple jump to, and then I just repeatedly spammed Ultima and quadruple jump.
I figured you would just be having him dance all the time.
Well, it was awesome to have him dance, too, but it was more awesome to have him deliver swift justice.
All right, so should we talk about what do we want to talk about now? Do we want to keep it positive and talk a little bit about FemShep, or do we want to just go hardcore negative and talk about Xi'an?
Kimberly wanted to talk about another character.
Okay, so Kim, go ahead and talk about another character. Let's try to keep it positive before we get to the
Well, this one can kind of go on two different sides of the spectrum, which I think would be a good lead-in to more of the negative qualities, which is, for me, she's really positive, and that's Mitsuru from Persona 3. But we've discussed this in the past, and she's a very polarizing character at first to some because she's so much in that leadership role, and at first you don't know how to take her. Because I remember when I started the game, I was like, all right, is she just going to end up on that, bossy spectrum, like she's in charge, she's going to order you around, or is there more to her character than meets the eye? And I feel like when even we presented our list, some people are like, I don't know about Mitsuru, but you know what? I really think what it comes down to is, did you complete her social link or not? Because if you completed her social link, it totally changed your entire view of the character. There's someone who felt very shackled by her family name and everything that was going on, pressures from her family to, perform in a certain role. She basically has a fiance who pretty much tells her, I expect you to be completely all about me. What I want matters, not what you want. And you go through the game and she finally kind of breaks through that. So it's a very positive character, and it's one you're not expecting. And that's what I like about it. She could have just very much been one-dimensional, like, I'm just good at everything. I'm perfect. I'm going to boss you around. But if you got to her social link and completed a completely different character.
See, I still haven't made it past the second stratum or whatever in that game. And I've always wanted to because I love the game. I just I always stop at that same part. Lacey's actually further than I am, and I know Mitsuru eventually joins you, but I never got to the point where I could actually.
Never got it. Okay.
Oh, you're that early.
So for me, I was just like, oh, she's the chick who's like, the enemy is weak to fire.
That's better than Teddy yelling at you. You can tell it's a danger.
Yeah, no, and that's what I think people miss out, because you can't really complete her social link on your first playthrough. Like, it really takes
it's actually pretty difficult to finish.
Yeah, it takes 2 playthroughs for it. But she's got one of the best ones in the game. Like, I walked away, if you ask me what my favorite social link from that game was, it's hands down Mitsuru, just because there's such character development in it, and you really feel for the character. And this is someone who, you might get that. This is not because she uses ice attack, but that cold as ice mentality from when you're I know, bad analogy. I thought of it as I was saying it there. I was like, foreigner song, cold as ice, stop. But anyway.
You appear to be cold as ice. Those are Loverboy songs,
But anyways, no, she's very much, she opens up, she lets her guard down as it goes on. Now the question is, should the game have made it that it's that hard to get that social link to break down, or did that make you want to play it again?
That's what killed Persona 4 for me. Like, I was so looking forward to a new game plus, and then I started it up again, and I was like, wait a minute, everything reset. I don't have any of my abilities anymore, and like all my social links have set. I was just like, no, I'm not playing it through again. That bothered me. I really hated how everything reset when you replay Persona 4.
So in 3, when you finish it, you keep the status of your social links?
I don't know.
No. Not the status. Your stats carry over.
Right. So like your courage,
you can very easily just get through
So
it
you
again.
had the most charm. You could easily get to Mitsuru's social link because you need to have a certain amount. Is it courage or smarts to talk to her?
I think it was courage with her.
No, it's smarts.
I know that you have to do
my fault.
I feel like it achieved this level to talk to her because you had to be on her level. I'm a bit.
It was a shame. I really would have liked it if the new game plus for that game had let me keep the social links, so that way I could try to max them all out. Like, I'm a min-maxer, so I wanted to have maximum social links. I would have replayed Persona 4 in a heartbeat if I could have done that. That was just a little complaint.
People from Persona 4 who liked it wanted us to put Naoto on our feature, but that was another character who, unless you took that second playthrough, you didn't quite get through it. And something about her never struck me the way it did with Mitsuru. I don't know what it was. I just knew that they're going further.
I found Naoto an interesting character, but I didn't finish her social link, so I just kind of watched the rest on YouTube, and it was kind of disappointing, to be honest. There's a couple different ways it can go, but none of it really, makes her character more interesting, like the way Mitsuru's social link did.
Go ahead.
It's also interesting because if I remember correctly, I think I YouTubed Naoto's too, because the only way to finish Naoto is to literally hardcore go after her the second she's available. Otherwise, you miss her. And I think if I remember correctly, when she comes and she hangs out at your place or whatever, she dresses feminine as like her way of opening up to you, and that struck me as very false. That struck me as very out of character.
Both of you the question: do you feel like Naoto fell too much on one end of the spectrum, where she wasn't as far developed as maybe she could have been? I don't know. I felt like she was too much on one. And even when you broke down some walls, because I got about through half of her social link, I believe, and I was never that invested in her for some reason. Like I
thought she was going to be an interesting character, given her storyline and how she started out, dressing or trying to come off as a guy. And I thought she would be more interesting, but I was kind of let down. Like, I think it could have been a lot better.
Yeah, I just felt like it was a huge transition from her being like, I understand that she didn't want to show feminine qualities, but then by showing them, it almost felt like a betrayal of that character.
Or like it's going against what she stood out for in the beginning.
Yeah, it's hard because
she wanted to be treated as an equal, but then she's going on a level where she's, going a step backwards.
Right, and she's acting submissive when she dresses feminine. She's very demure in that situation, and that just plays into the whole idea of, the female character is weak, the male character is strong. And I was like, no, she can be a strong chick. There's nothing wrong with that, I
thought she would be.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I barely played 4. Naoto is the girl who you first meet, right? She's like
She's a little bit later.
I think you're thinking of Chie.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. Yeah,
Naoto is, at first you think Naoto is a boy.
She basically looks like a young detective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny because I was instantly like, that sounds like a female voice actor.
Yeah, you got it right away. But they're trying to do that with her and Kanji, secret lovers, but it didn't work.
Well, my problem with her quote opening up to you in the last scene of her social link was, I always thought that opening up to someone would just be showing somebody your true self, and I thought that Naoto dressing feminine was not her true self.
Yeah.
It's female, but you don't necessarily have to be feminine to be your true self if you're a female.
Yeah.
Well, now
and that bothered me.
No, now this actually kind of leads us back into the whole done a fem-shep debate because we've had this conversation before. What is a shepherd's true gender? And when you go through it, some people said, well, you put her on the list, but she can be played as a male. And for me, what it comes down to is your interpretation of the character. When I play, I'm playing as a female. BioWare has changed some things being a female, but not all that much. And I feel, for me, what it comes down to is that they're writing that character, the female shep and the male shep, is equal. So I don't see that as a bad thing necessarily. I see that as these are, no matter what gender you play as, you're playing as a strong character who is out there to save the world, who does not back down.
Yeah.
And you can play them how you want. So I feel like it's all about choice with BioWare games, and that's, again, where you have their choice.
BioWare
I think the way you can argue that, I'm sorry, the way you can argue that is that, no, she's not set in stone like those other characters we have on our list. But the fact that you have the choice to play a female character who's very strong like that is the reason why she's on the list.
Yes, exactly.
Huh. Yeah. BioWare has come out and said that there is no true gender to Shepard. Like, they really wanted to emphasize the choice, I guess. But, yeah, like, the way she's written, I mean, Shepard just works really well in both genders. It doesn't feel like one gender shoehorned into another.
Like, she works well in both genders, except when she talks to Jacob, and it's really awkward in the second game.
It's pretty awkward, yeah.
I'm more interested in talking about you. It's just like, she doesn't do that with any other character. So they tried to make, like, you know, female have an impact of a different thing, but then they kind of try to pigeonhole you into a choice, i.e. Jacob, which I didn't agree with, but, you know.
I think my only real we argued about this before, and I think it's great that BioWare is giving you the choice to play as Shepard, to play as Hawk, to play as male or female, and I think that's great. But I don't view Shepard or Hawk as male or female. I view them as neutral gender because I don't feel a huge difference when I'm playing as male Shepard, when I'm playing as female Shepard. Granted, I like female Shepard more because I love Jennifer Hale's voice. It feels like Naomi Hunter is just killing people, and I really like that. But to me, the character is just gender neutral, and I understand putting female Shepard as a premier positive female character, and I think that's great. I'm happy BioWare did it, but she doesn't strike me as having a gender.
You know what's interesting, Rob, is actually I've been looking, I hop around the internet a lot and I look at other people's opinions on things, and girls seem to really resonate with female Shepard as like awesome. As a strong role model, and you'll see them time and time again when they point out their favorite characters, it comes back to FemShep, and I think that's just because we're not seeing a lot of females written that strongly, and there's many dimensions to either Shepard, the way you play them, the characters, who they're interacting with, what they become through them, and I think it's just interesting that for the first time I feel like females are feeling very much equal in that respect. Like, they're not dumbing down the character, they're not just making her a pretty face, they're having more to this character that you're playing through as her. So I think that's what comes down to it, is that females are just not used to having such, a strong role model like that and being able to play her as they please. Usually we're stuck to playing characters, the main character, through the eyes of someone else, because we're usually playing as a male, or we're usually playing as a female who doesn't exactly lie on the realistic pattern, but something about FemShep is very realistic and very endearing to a lot of people. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Lacey actually, I had a conversation with Lacey a few months ago where she said to me, she goes, growing up, I never knew there were games like this because I had just had her playing. She had just beaten Mass Effect 1, and she was in the process of stealing Persona 3 from me on PSP, which is why I didn't beat it. And she kept saying, she's like, why don't they advertise these kind of games more? She's like, I can play these characters as though it's me.
You know what, Stephen? It's interesting because I actually just read an article. I think it's not the newest issue, but the one back in OXM, and they were talking. There's an editorial done, and they were talking about how on the box they never advertise a female Shepard. It's always a male Shepard, right? So why wouldn't you put both characters kind of on the box? But it kind of, people don't know that option is always out there for them.
But didn't a male Shep have an actual... Wasn't he actually modeled after a male model, whereas FemShep never got? They were modeled after a real person?
I don't know anything about
that. Just physically.
Well, even regardless of that, it wouldn't hurt to put, a female on the box too, so it felt like you had a choice in the matter. Like, they make it a choice, but then, like, it's an interesting read. I don't agree with everything in the editorial, don't get me wrong, but I feel like that's sometimes where people miss that there's an option in your gender there.
Okay. So, I think I was echoing in Steven's mic. Okay, now we're good. Sorry about that. That was weird.
That was weird.
I think we can either, since we've already hit an hour, we can either talk about a couple awful female characters, or we can have a really short news section. It doesn't really matter to me which way we want to go there. I'd rather not talk about Shion because I'm going to get really, really angry.
Alan, you're so stupid. Alan.
I'm PhD. Do we want to just kind of end it with the Princess Peach thing that we were talking about and how she needs to get stronger, and then maybe we can do a short condensed news in with that, so we just say, or do we want to avoid the negativity?
I would rather avoid the negativity.
All right, let's go straight.
I think we've had a really good positive podcast. We're talking about positive female characters because I think, it's easy for us to point out the bad characters, the Shions, the Princess Peaches. Let's not
draw attention to them.
Right, but I don't even want to draw attention to them because I think we all know that they're lame characters. As a sidebar, it just came, The Witcher 2 just came out. The Witcher 2 has toned down the misogyny just a little bit.
I read about that. I read that the male characters are a little bit better in this version.
A little bit. Like, it's granted.
I'm a female.
Granted, you see Triss naked within the first 5 minutes of the game, but it definitely toned it down a little bit. You're not collecting sleeping with cards.
You start the game and you're like, oh wow, everyone's naked.
Yeah, and of course Geralt just looks like hamburger meat because he's just been the crap has been kicked out of him. So
let's go on to news then.
Yeah, let's talk about news. Can I talk about the only news story that matters? Okay. There's only one news story that matters. And that is that the Diablo 3 beta is starting sometime between July 1st and September 30th. So that's Q3 of this year. Blizzard has said that they want to get the game out this year. Activision seems to think they're not going to meet that, so they're expecting it first quarter, probably, of 2012. Steven, how excited are we right now?
Let me translate for you. Blizzard basically released a press release saying, okay, Q3, every other game might as well get deleted because we're done with them.
And the guys who are making Torchlight 2 just went,
I know you're making, Modern Warfare 3. Oh, by the way, Battlefield 3, can we just go ahead and get rid of all those? That's not going to work out.
I'm so excited. I still don't know who I want to play as.
It's going to be awesome.
I still don't know who I want to play as. I love the Monk and I love the Demon Hunter.
Everyone can go buy a new mouse because they're going to break their left mouse button.
I'm sorry we like fun, John.
Yes. Wait, well, no, Rob hates fun, but I like
Rob hates fun.
Now,
Rob hates fun.
Now, see, we can tie this in to a game that I was really expecting to like because it was supposed to be like Diablo. That being Hellgate London.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, who gave Hellgate London an award? And we were like...
Oh, I gave an award 3 years in a row. Because
you did that.
when they showed it at E3, it looked awesome. Like,
it really did.
Yeah, no, like this game, if you take it in small bursts and like it's a fantastic concept. It's got lots of things going for it. When it got released, it was just done. Yeah, it was so buggy. It wasn't done. It was just completely broken. Well,
I remember I got into the beta like a week before it came out, and I was playing it, and I was like, this comes out in a week?
Yeah, it was just so broken, and eventually in 2009, the servers went down in North America. Well, Henbitsoft, which is a Korean MMO company, is actually opening the game back up in North America as a free-to-play MMO.
And I want to try
Interesting.
So...
Are they fixing anything about it, or...?
That's the question. They've been running the servers in Asia. The servers in Asia never went down.
I heard that they've actually been patching it and updating it like any other MMO since they took control of it.
So if that is true and they're running it like a free-to-play MMO, like other free-to-play MMOs should be scared because this game has a very solid core. Just everything else is broken.
Gotcha.
So I'm interested to see how it comes about. It's entering a brief closed beta June 3rd to 5th, so just around E3.
Cool.
Do we want to talk about the other big game that's coming out this year in October that Steven and I are very excited about?
So Dark Souls coming out in October.
Yay!
So do you really want to play Dark Souls now that The Witcher's out?
What? We all know. No. Here's what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to give a preview of the next podcast. I know what John's hinting at, but here's the preview of the next podcast. Kyle's going to come on here and say how he thinks Demon Souls is ridiculously hard, and he doesn't understand why I like it. I'm going to say how The Witcher 2 is ridiculously hard, and he's going to say that he loves it. And then probably about 3-4 months from now, in October, when it's time for 5 months from now actually, when it's time for Dark Souls, we're going to immediately flip-flop again, and I'm going to probably talk about how much I love it and how it's not that hard. And he's going to be like, Rob, there's something wrong with you.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
It's fair. Dark Souls, looking at an October 11th release. That's kind of hoping that PSN gets working by then.
I'm sure it'll be by then.
It is back up, but we're having reports about passwords being stolen again.
Don't be By that I mean drama queen over it.
Rob, the password, it was not passwords being stolen. It was a URL.
Okay.
Not even a hack. It
was a threat.
I'm just saying what the developer said, because I think that the PSN was down for everybody, and then the developers were the first ones to get access again.
It's up. It forces you to reset your password before you can log back in.
But all I'm saying is that the developer, the lead designer of Dark Souls, said we really want to get the game out at October 11th, but we're a little nervous right now with all the PSN problems. That's all I'm saying.
No. Yeah. That's hopefully they're all resolved. The store's supposed to be up next week. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So Dark Souls, there's a huge monster collector's edition, which is free in terms of that content. You're getting all this stuff for free. You're getting a mini strategy guide.
Hey, Rob, did they hire you?
Let's remember to thank Atlas.
Yeah. You mean Bandai?
Wow, Steven.
Well, no, because probably if not for Atlas, we would never see this in North America.
Exactly.
I agree.
Atlas is great.
You get a little mini strategy guide, a frickin' music CD. I'm too excited. I just need to.
Which is tangential to the fact that the game is going to be amazing.
Did you just?
What?
Rob just heard the word genital.
Did you just say tangential?
Is commenting on that.
Am I the only one that heard that?
No, you're not. But you're the only one who was childish enough to make comments.
We all sat there.
Robert
Took it to the next level.
Wow.
All right. So we know Rob wants Dark Souls. It's going to be out in October. I have more news.
Yes.
Chaos Rings Omega is available now. So actually,
as of today.
Yeah, the last time I think I did news, it was that it got announced. Now it's out. So
awesome.
It's what, like $12, $13, somewhere around there.
It's like 15 or so, something like that.
So it's expensive for an iOS game. Square does that, but Square also makes full-fledged games for iOS. You're not going to buy some sprite-based RPG where it's full of English. So
rip off graphics from other games,
Yeah.
Go spell Evilise 3 different ways.
Yeah. Speaking of Evilise, Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions for iOS got dated. It should be out sometime between June and July, with the iPad version following shortly afterward.
Do we really want to play? I want to play it on the iPad, but do I really want to play that on the iPhone?
Yes. I don't know.
That's a really small screen.
I can't play.
And then you're gonna come on the podcast and hate it.
No. Come on. The gameplay is going to be
it's
fine.
a bad game. It's just I don't know. I'm kind of more.
No, it is a small screen. I agree.
It's probably going to have it's a full-fledged iOS port. They've been working on this for a while now, so I'm sure it's going to have pinch and drag and all the kind of stuff that if you need exact controls, it's fine. I mean, Song Summoner worked fine on the iPod Touch.
Yeah, no, that's true. They have been putting a lot of time into it. I think I would prefer to have it on the iPad. I don't know what we're looking at for a price for it, but I'm interested.
Probably about the same, both
probably
$12-15.
At that, I would pay $10 just to try it.
Well, yeah, because you don't have a PSP, and this
I know
the story actually makes sense in War of the Lions.
The story actually works this time. It's not like Heavy Rain.
Anyway, more news.
That had to get
news.
I know.
Lineage is dead in North America as of June somewhere.
June 29th.
June 29th.
That's sad.
Lineage 1 is dying.
Oh,
However,
Lineage 1. Oh, okay. I was like, Lineage 2? Ow.
No. So actually, if you are a Lineage 1 subscriber, you'll be getting a free game and free game time in one of NCSoft's other games.
Is Asheron's Call still working?
So I think Asheron's Call 1 is still up, but Asheron's Call 2 is not.
That is so weird.
Man.
More news.
Yeah.
Konami has announced a PSP dungeon crawler called Terror of the Stratus.
We probably won't see it, so
Yeah, I doubt
I'm
that
a
this
little
one will come to
bitter
North
because it
America.
looks really cool.
It does look cool.
It looks different, you
But
know,
yeah.
and I wish they'd take more chances. So we'll see.
I think that the PSP market is really bad, and not a
No,
lot of
I don't doubt
companies
that,
are
and-
bringing PSP games, except Atlas teased today Persona 2 Innocent Sin. There's been no official announcement. But you got an email that was like, oh, it's June 23rd, 1999, and there's
Well,
no...
guess when Innocent Sin came out in Japan? June 24th, 1999.
Yeah, that was a cool ad. That was a really
awesome.
cool way. Yeah.
I love the part about the don't keep your post-apocalyptic games. That was my favorite part.
This is the
In the
first
Y2K
game.
section.
This is the first game in the
Yeah,
collection.
this is the first
Yeah.
half
The first
Persona
game
2.
of the two Persona 2 games that
Okay,
it
so-
never came here before.
yeah, it never
Right.
came here.
The Eternal Punishment came.
So we'll
So-
probably end up getting Eternal Punishment. Have they said if they're making Eternal Punishment on the PSP?
Not yet, but you know it's got to be coming.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
they would be crazy not to. Persona has such a fanfare going right now. Ever since 3
sure.
and 4 came and brought the party back, people want to go back to these older games. So I think it works out well.
We'll see what happens. At the very
Yeah,
least, you can
and-
play it on PSP and then play the second one on PS1.
Well, I just hope it's not. Are they changing it up? It's a full-on remake, right? It's not going to feel archaic like Persona.
Innocent Sin. It's got like a bit of an update, and I mean it's got a whole new interface, and
I liked
Yeah,
because
a whole
I
bunch
read
of-
that you can build your own quests through it, which
Yeah,
seemed
that's a new
interesting.
thing.
They added that on, but I know when I went back to play Persona, it was like the first one like an adjustment when it came out on the PSP because I was like, wow, this hasn't aged. I was getting dizzy going through all the corridors and everything. So I just
Yeah.
hope I'm excited for it. It doesn't end that end of the spectrum. So.
well, just looking at it, it looks like they've updated it quite a bit. I mean, but they're keeping the original music, or you have the option of listening to the arranged stuff. But supposedly the arranged stuff isn't all that great. But we'll see whenever Atlas brings it over.
I think a lot of people. I heard that the arranged music wasn't that good, but I think a lot of people just don't like the fact that they changed it because those games are so beloved. Just because they changed it to suit the style of the Persona 3 and 4 soundtrack.
But that's why they kept the original, because they figure some people has attachment to the original soundtrack. So you have the option of going between them.
More news.
Yep.
More news.
NIS America is bringing Claudune X2 and Atelier Totori to North America.
Is it an RPG?
Both of those are.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Totori I'm excited about.
Story I'm mainly excited about because I want Maruru.
Well, yeah, and
But that'll be like a year away.
they're fun. Like I played a little bit of Rona. I have to go back to it, but Claudune is like hit or miss. Either people love it or they seem to hate it. So you either fall on one end of the spectrum. You can either appreciate what it's doing or it's too old school.
No, Rob, I know what you're about to say.
Oh, here we go.
Rob will
I
hate it.
like Mitch Hedberg.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, you're just going to say you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, or I forget what the end of the
Or are
line
you going to
is.
think it's okay?
Yeah.
That's
So-
a really good Mitch. I got to see Mitch Hedberg right before he died. I'm sorry.
Are you? Oh, that must have been awesome.
Oh,
You're
it
either
was
gonna
really
you're
funny.
gonna hate it, or you're gonna think it's okay.
I was hoping for quadruple tree. Anyway, Chrono Trigger out on Virtual Console. If for some
Buy
reason you
it.
don't own it for DS or Super Nintendo,
Buy it or you're a heathen.
yeah, so go buy it. Tales of Grace's F is going to be out
Yes.
sometime in 2010 in North America.
2012.
2010.
Me so
really?
excited.
2010. Yes, it's going to be out in 2010. It's out.
It's gonna be out
It's
in
out last year.
Wow, John, don't tease me like
I'm
that.
teaching my kids. I'm teaching my students about time dilation right now. You could have been traveling approximately the speed of light.
Wouldn't I have to be traveling
least
faster than the speed of light for
No,
time
you
going
can't travel.
backwards?
Once you travel faster than
close
the
to the
speed of light, then you exist in infinite time. You don't want that. That's a bad thing.
What
That's
if I have portals?
storyline right there.
Anyway, anyways, back to Graces. Let's
Tales
just
of Gra-
hope it's the JRPG that we've been hoping for consoles because we've been starved.
Yeah.
My only thing is I've heard Tales of Graces when it first came out on Wii wasn't really that good.
Well, the Wii version is
But this
apparently
one is-
broken, and apparently they fixed all of it with the PS2 version or the PS3 version.
Okay. I think they should just remake Tales of the Abyss with HD graphics, and then it'll be the best JRPG.
Oh my god! But they're making it with 3D graphics, and that's also coming out in North America. But that's this year.
There's a ton of Tales games I wish we would get. Don't
There
even.
are
I would
many
like
Tales.
Exilia. It looks neat.
I would like that. I would like the DS games that came out that we never got. So
Hey, I've got a Japanese version of Tales of the Tempest. If you want to play a really bad game.
I've
No,
never
that
played
game
that
is
one.
so
you have to get a
horrendous.
good one.
Emma.
I went to Tales of Hearts, which is like an absolutely horrible name, but I heard that one was pretty good.
Tales of
Yeah.
Innocence has a really good story, and Tales of Hearts has really cool combat.
Cool.
Anyway,
Might want to wrap it up here in a couple.
I only got three more. Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, Q1 2012. Looked good. Jaeger liked it.
No, it's
So
looking really good.
So, if you like or Western RPGs, and once you're done soaking up all the goodness that is Witcher 2, check that out. We had a preview when Dave Yeager went and saw it at Big Huge Game Studios, so check it out. Also coming out in Q1 because of a delay is Mass Effect 3.
I'm glad.
Shocker.
No, that's not a bad thing. Let's
I'm
No,
glad.
it's not a
the
bad thing.
final entry.
I love
Let's
Mass
not
Effect.
rush it. Let's make it the best that we can do and see what happens. But I have faith that that was a good decision.
If y'all had repeating repeating environments, might want to tone that down a little bit.
Actually, I was gonna say
Yeah.
when they
Rob,
first
that's so
announced
not
it,
even fair
Rob.
to say because they've had the same
I know.
development time between Mass Effect 1
Rob.
and 2, and they did a standout game.
The
So.
entire game takes place on the Citadel.
oh gosh.
Stuck.
visit
Oh.
all Commander Shepard's favorite stores.
Here's the thing I'm hoping for 3.
Oh,
Like,
This is my favorite store in the Citadel. So is this one.
Someone
Oh
needs
wow,
to
I
make-
like all these stores.
someone needs to get that together with Kairosoft, the guys who make all the story games for the iOS, and put together Commander Shepard's story where you just go around and
Indoor stores.
Yeah.
No, we're all having fun right now. We're all having fun right now, but I think it's a good sign if the game wasn't going to be ready, if they want a stronger release window, because right now Q4 is looking monstrous right now. I know every year I say that Q4 looks nuts, but I think every year it gets progressively more nuts.
Yeah,
I think
especially with
and there's
Uncharted.
always like 1 or 2 games in the mix that get delayed, so
Oh,
it's
yeah,
not
and
as bad as you ever think it's going to be.
There are games that disappear. I remember, This Is Vegas. It was supposed to be the big thing.
What?
I remember that.
I don't know.
But I'm hoping that the third game's gonna balance out the overreaching story that we got in 1 and the good characterization that we got in 2 to form that complete final package. So
And that's what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
I really hope that.
If anyone can do it, they can.
Yeah.
Then no Mako. No.
They took away the Mako in the second one.
No.
Kim, how do you feel about the Mako?
Everybody
I'm
knows you
so
love
happy when that thing blew up. My gosh.
You can drive straight up a mountain wall with that thing. It's awesome. I
Kim,
want one
you're
of
like
those.
Kim is channeling my anger right now. I have taught you so well, child. Continue with your
It's good.
rage.
The Mako has lots and lots of torque.
Give in.
But yeah, I didn't make mine either. I made John mine for me in the second one because I just didn't want to do it.
Kim,
Mine was not bad in the second one, though. I liked it.
Kim,
That's because you're crazy.
Kim, repeat after me. Something dark side.
No.
Something complete.
Okay, so last bit of news since we got to. So this was actually new news when it came out, but now that it's more than 2 weeks later, there's 3 download contents for Fallout New Vegas. One of them is already out.
And guess what? It's broken when it first came out. Shock,
They wish
shock and awe.
Are
They're
people
like, I
really still
wish that
playing that game at this point? I feel like it's been there, done that.
That's
done.
what I played when I got home from work.
What is
Well,
it with games and DLC with the word hearts in them?
Jeez.
So,
I think and it came out, and again, I'm just having fun, but you're talking about a huge open world game. It's really hard to add content on there, and I think it'll be shocking. I think it'll be a news story when they release a download content for a game like Oblivion or Skyrim or Fallout, when it works right off the bat, because every time that'll be the news story.
Well, what do you guys think is the good point for them to release download content? Like, do they wait a couple months? Do they do it like?
I think this is way too late for Fallout New Vegas.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah, we're coming up on a year.
You know what? To go back to the game we always talk about, I think the best timing I've seen for DLC was Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
Well, that's because Mass Effect 2 was like, here's some download content, here's some more download content. Oh, you wait a little bit, here's another download content, and it spreads things out.
Here's some more.
So instead, they're waiting too long to, like, with Fallout New Vegas to release all this download content.
Fallout New Vegas was like, here's this really crappy download pack, then we're not going to release one for 4 months, then we're going to release 3 of them.
Yeah,
after each other.
I guess what do we prefer? Do we prefer small bits of DLC, or do we prefer the large, expansive Lord of Destruction expansion pack? Because I like the latter.
It all depends on the game.
I like the latter.
Well, I like it to be balanced off. I don't like to be overwhelmed by, like, I complete a game, I got all this, like, DLC to play, but I like it to come in, like, good increments of time.
I'm annoyed.
Not too close, not too far apart.
I'm really annoyed right now with, like, LA Noire, the fact that, like, every major retailer has their own case that you can download. So there's like
that's kind of
there's like 4 or 5 cases for DLC.
Where did you buy yours from?
I got it from GameStop, and I would love to download those right now, but I can't. So
same here.
Yeah, but like if you bought it from Best Buy, you got a case, and so they had all this content in it. I just feel like they stripped it out of the game just to kind of.
You know what? That's a lot of people's argument with DLC. Actually, we could do a whole podcast on it. Like, I feel like a lot of it is more of an afterthought than anything. Like, they complete the main part of the game, but they want to extend it on. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's as cut and dry as people think it is.
What I like most is I want my download content to be like Broken Steel.
Yes.
Where I would have paid $15 for Broken Steel, and that would have been a perfect price point for it. Where it's got like 8 hours of content.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect for me, because oftentimes, like, when I have an expansion pack, unless I really, 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 really like the game,
Diablo 2,
I don't want to play an expansion pack. Like, I ran into that with Persona 3 Fest. Like, I liked Persona 3 a lot, but when I played Fest, I was just kind of like, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Well, it was such.
I felt that with the end of Persona 4. Like, I was done.
I think also with Broken Steel added not just that finale quest that was like the real ending to Fallout 3, but you could also continue to level up your character. So it didn't just affect that ending scenario. It affected the whole game. It gave you 10 brand new levels and new perks and new weapons. So
actually,
you can't quantify that. Like, that was a huge impact on that game.
That's actually another game that did that too. Was, I mentioned it in the chat, Borderlands DLC did basically the same thing. It was perfect length. Each one was like 5-6 hours. You know, 2 of them raised the level cap. They added tons of new. You know, they were perfect DLC because they were exactly what you wanted from that game.
Yep.
Yeah. One last thing, and then we can end.
You get the last point, John.
So, not an RPG, but I think that a game that has done DLC incorrectly is Civilization 5.
Yes.
I am a Civilization nut. I love Civilization, but I'm not paying $7 for a new Civilization. Sorry. That's not going to happen.
He's putting his foot down.
It doesn't affect the game enough.
Yeah, if you give me an expansion pack where you give me, 6 or 7 new civs and new units and new scenarios, I will pay $40 for that. But I'm not paying $7 for each tiny little bit of DLC. Sorry.
All right, so I think we definitely need to wrap it up because we went way too long. So everybody have a good time?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, there's a lot. Yeah.
There's definitely more to talk about, and I think I definitely want to get you guys back on, and we can talk more. I'm sure we're going to have more female characters to talk about. Following some
in general too.
So thanks to everybody for subscribing to the podcast, giving us feedback on the message boards.
We do have an active email account for the podcast @rpgfan.com.
I didn't want you. That's not where you were going to. We had that stored up for the ending. What I was going to say was...
at the wrong time, Rob.
Ah, God. What I was going to say was the next podcast is going to be Kyle Miller versus Rob Steinman in a bloody showdown over Witcher 2.
We all get to ref. We get to referee, huh?
And I was going to talk about how
They're going to need a lot of referees.
No, can we do rounds, Rob? And can we say who won? That'd be awesome.
I'll win.
We'll be judges, and we'll say who's winning.
But the joke was that I was going to say, and I'm going to tear Kyle apart, and then I wanted the Kefka music. It's kind of lost.
That was like sad Kefka laugh. We only got part of
it. You should make the Kefka laugh into the like wah 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 wah.
Slow it down. Auto tune it.
All right. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you all next time.